think a more culturally diverse show in your products can generate more sales, like when it comes to magazine ads? I know in fashion there were times when they said if there was an African American or sometimes an Asian person on the cover, they wouldn't be able to sell as many magazines. Do you think that there's a correlation between if we do have more of a face behind the design in the magazine, or even the people that we interview or show in the magazines?
I think so. When I was at Owen Home, I used to work on this section called Women Who Make Beautiful Things, and it was up to me to find the diverse women, because I think like 25% of our readers were African American, and they were not really represented on our pages. So we were trying to increase their representation in order to maintain their readership, and it's very hard, and I think it does make a huge difference because you do want to relate to the people in the magazine that you're reading.
Anybody else want to add to that? Okay. What do you think about TV? Do you think it would bring more ad sales, or you don't get ad sales?
Yeah, we get a huge amount of ads. We actually have, a lot of people don't realize, because we're in New York and we don't know all this like heavy middle of the country that exists so much, but we have one of the most affluent, loyal, and kind of old female audience in America, which is just incomparable. So the thing is that we cater to these people, and whenever we change up Kim Miles, for instance, who's a great talent who won Design Star in season 2, when her show is on the network, our indexes go up tremendously because it's an audience that's not watching otherwise. So it directly relates to our ratings. I can't speak on ad sales point of view, but as far as people who watch, when you can relate to an audience, it just, spins it that much more. Again, her being a great designer and also being a super cool personality helps a lot. But she's, I think it's...
I just want to add as well that diversity and inclusion is sellable, absolutely. Just to be able to, I don't know, it shouldn't be that difficult, I don't know why it is, to just have a magazine that features, someone from every part of the world. I mean, the world is getting smaller, and thanks to our technology. And we're in the age of Obama. I mean, look at the White House. That's like the prime example of a family that's turned the White House into the people's house. And they've, welcomed every nationality, diversity. I mean, it's just been pretty amazing just to watch just the unfolding of that whole diversity and, embrace. And so they've had, a theater, a Jewish theater, and then they had, the White House bunny, Easter egg hunt. It's just been amazing to embrace that diversity. So I can't see why that can't trickle down in all areas of, media, design, fashion.
It does go beyond just racial diversity. Like
right.
Our Design Star winner this year was like a dude covered in tattoos, and all of a sudden our young male index went up. Things like that. Just showcasing every type of person is, I think, in magazines, on blogs, everything of that sort.
I just have 2 other questions, and then we'll open it up to everybody who might have a question. Tips. What are some tips that you might have, like designer to designer, on how to get your stuff out there, some things that have worked, and then to you guys who are part of the media, what are some things that you look for?
Tips. I think one of the things that always has worked for me, or used to work for me when I would get published in magazines, and people, again, always found it sort of fascinating that I didn't hire a publicist, was that I really tried to do the work for the editor when I presented something to a magazine, which was to basically write the story for them and present it in that way, whether it was to take snapshots or images that I felt like really would tell the story, write a letter or whatever sort of copy that I felt like went along with it. I remember I don't remember what year it was, maybe it was like 1994 1995 or 1996, I was featured in the May issue of Martha Stewart Living, and she did a very big spread on my apartment, and it was called A Great Day in Harlem. And they featured me having a brunch in my apartment, and I was also, and that was a May issue, and it was a big deal because the very same month I was featured in House Beautiful in the May issue in my apartment, and everybody said, well, how could you possibly have been able to do that? You know, these are two magazines that sort of compete. And you know, I really positioned it with two completely different stories. One was an entertaining story in which I provided recipes that were from my grandmother and my family and my friends reading poetry, and it just was a very different story than the House Beautiful story, which was really strictly about the interior and my designs, as opposed to sort of lifestyle or about kind of culture and food and the things that I think were more important sort of to Martha Stewart. So, but for both of those, I really took a lot of images and really told the story first, and I think that's what people really still have to do, especially now that there are so many fewer publications that actually exist. I think it's far more competitive. There's certainly just as many designers out there, so you really, I think, have to go after those sorts of things in a way that allows you to show your best work, and you really have to be, again, really be the person that pushes that.
So I guess,
What do we have to do to be on HGTV?
I mean, truthfully, you just have to stalk me out. Like, it's really that. Like, people have come to, like, email me through my blog and be like, feature me on 10 questions with, and then I'll do it. Like, it takes nothing. And then every single person from my network reads that blog, and they're all just, and that's how we get the conversation rolling. We'd just be like, hey, I'm in New York this week, can I roll through? And we'll be like, yeah, and introduce you to everyone. And then if there's a talking head segment, or we have all these awesome new shows that are coming, we're bringing design back to HGTV. So we have all these awesome new shows coming out that are testing designers and everything. So if you come through the office and just sit down with me for 10 minutes, then to start introducing you to our directors who are working on this show right now, and I need to cast, this space, and then you get entered into this little database, and one day I'm looking for someone who really likes modern design, or like white lacquer, or something like that, and I type it into the database, and your name pops up, and then I need you for that show. Things like that, it's so simple, but I think that for a really long time, it seemed like it was this hard barrier to break to get into the door. But the barrier doesn't really exist anymore. You have my email on the blog. Just send me an email and be like, listen, I really want to be on television. Hook it up. And we bring you into the office. No, but it really is that simple. We bring you into the office, introduce you to people, and as soon as there's something that you can fit into, if you're, a normal person who can speak, then I mean, and you know how to design really nice stuff, then I want you on my air. It benefits both of us. So all it is about getting out there. And I mean, you taught us, and we had a meeting with Tina where she left, and we were all like, I feel so lazy. She goes out and gets her name out there, and when it comes down to it, all it takes is someone to be like, hey, I'm, John Smith. I want to be on television. Here's my portfolio, and I'd love to come in and chat for a little bit. And you do that, and then I remember you. I know that you're really driven, that you really want to do this, and it just works itself out. So I would say the biggest thing is just to start screaming, and someone will hear you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just requires a lot of persistence and having a really tight product and really tight way of featuring and presenting your product as well. If you're just really, lazy about it and just kind of uninspired about it, it's going to reflect in your work. So, especially the people who have that eye, who are used to seeing millions or thousands of different products sent to them every day, and then, nothing about your work stands out, then that can be, problematic as well. But yeah, definitely being persistent is the most important thing, and being passionate as well about what you do and believing in yourself, or rather in your product, and then everything kind of just really does fall into place. You just have to be persistent. That's probably the most number one thing.
I don't really have anything to add. I do like Sheila's idea of doing the work for the editor. That works for me. Just send me a story with some images added into it. I'm very visual, so I really like good photography. Not good photography, but just like a really good image of your product and like a short blurb. And just be very persistent and make sure your product is good and timely.